Now we need to talk about the limitations on an STS. If we've taught you to just say to the guy over and over, I'm an American, I'm here teaching your people literacy, please let me go. I'm an American, I'm here teaching. We're never going to get a chance to really humanize, to have a witness. It's going to look a little artificial, particularly when the pressure's off. So when the pressure's off, I need to start to build a relationship. In fact, I need to get this guy or gal to see me as a human, as a real person. So there are some topics that would be helpful to bring up. And as we discussed confidentiality, now there's some things that we specifically do want to bring out. We list all those and we put a little box around them and call them the box, in the box. And it's the safe place to go when the pressure's off, things that you can talk about. And I'll give you some specific examples in the box. You've got that in your materials, but home and family. I want to be careful. Confidentiality says I might not want to link them to where my mother's at. Confidentiality, I might not want to give them specifics on, that my coworkers are across town in this restaurant because I don't want them involved into this. But the fact that I have a family and that I have a mom or a dad or a brother or sister or that I have children, getting them to start to see me as a dad instead of as an American, getting them to start to see me as a sister who has relatives who care about her, starting to see me as something other than a victim, one of these people they put a blindfold on TV when they're threatening to execute and hurt. I need to create that image, and so I need to share some of myself safely. In the box, home and family, health issues. It's a good idea to bring up things that I might need. They need live hostages or we wouldn't still be here. So I need to bring up, sir, we'd love to comply and stay alive. So how about maybe we could get a nurse or a doctor or, the idea that they're going to respond to that may seem remote to you. Why would they care? They're not going to get me a doctor or nurse. We had a group in the Middle East here a few years ago, went out and kidnapped a doctor because the guy was complaining he needed a doctor. Okay? Now talk about your free house calls. They need me alive. They want us alive. So asking for medicine. We've seen groups holding people go out and fake prescriptions to get critical meds to keep their prisoners, a heart medication or something like that. So basic needs, soap, asking for blankets, reading materials. And you'd be surprised what things people have been allowed. We had some hostages held in Malaysia just about 4 years ago now. Asked for reading materials. They gave them a bunch of Reader's Digests. One of them had a good article on hostage survival from the guys held in the Iran hostage thing, and all the prisoners got a big laugh out of reading that and passing it around as information, okay? Soap, we had a guy held in South America, 3 months. He got so greasy without hot water and soap that it was affecting his health, his sleep. If you've ever been on a long airplane flight, you can imagine, take that times 3 months. And so one day he got mad and he just blew up and he said, you guys are animals, you won't even give a guy a bar of soap. And a few minutes later, as he's stormed off to his tent, a bar of soap appears at the edge of the flap and a little piece of rag there. And then he calmed down and he realized, I've just insulted these people who murder people and are holding me prisoner. I probably ought to go apologize. He went out and he said he was sorry. And then he said, why would you make a man torture me for 3 months without soap and then give it to me? And their answer was, well, Tom, you never asked. We didn't have any idea that you use it. We don't use it. You should have told us. So over and over, hostages get this impression, I think, or people being detained, that we have no rights, we're not allowed to speak, we never interact. On TV, we just do as we're told. You yell at me and I cower. Reality is, over time, if we're being held for hours or days or weeks, we're going to learn to work together. I have to go to the bathroom. They need a live prisoner. There are just certain things they're going to have to make concessions to because they wanted a live prisoner. Use those things. Requests to see the government. The guy's saying, you're not leaving without ransom, and I'm saying I don't have any money, but could you call the U.S. Embassy? In a government detention, that is one of your few legal areas where you have some I hate to use the word rights because I don't want you to say it to them that way, but there is some treaty stuff there. In any country that the U.S. government recognizes as a sovereign nation, we have a treaty of mutual a recognition. In the treaty, there is a section that gives each other citizens' rights. If I'm detained in their country, if they're detained in ours. And in the rights section, there is almost always, in every case I know of, there's a clause that says if you're arrested or detained in that country, when and if you ask for a representative from your government, you shall be granted one within X hours. As a team, I would get on the internet, look up State Department, make a phone call, and find out, what are the rules in this country we're going to? Is it 24 hours? Is it 72 hours? Know what that is, and then present it to the guy. If this thing's not resolving itself, it may be time to say, sir, obviously you're not letting me go, and I've explained myself. I told you I'm only here to help. Could we see someone from my government? Maybe they could clear it up. I would not throw this out as, I know my rights, I've read the treaty, and you're, okay, because you could still irritate somebody enough into, I may get to see my ambassador, but by then I'm wearing my arm in a sling. So I'm just going to keep presenting it to him. And if the answer is no, I'm going to, like a teenager, I'm going to wait a day or two and I'll ask again. But I would consistently ask for representatives from the government in a government detention. You could say that to a hostage taker, but he has no obligation to do that. Sometimes my students get that mixed up when we're role playing, and I want to see my right. Your rights with a hostage taker are kind of limited there, okay? But use that in the government one, and the concept works everywhere. Your testimony might fit in that box somewhere. That's another important thing. I don't want to come and preach at this guy, but if I'm living out my faith and I'm living in such a way with this guy that he sees that I am a little bit different and that I'm not a hypocrite, I actually do practice what I preach. Many hostages have often been allowed a chance to explain why they're different, why they even came overseas in the first place, what would motivate them to put these, take these sort of risks and come overseas and help somebody out. Now, if there's a box and there's a limit on things that we have said, then there's obviously an outside the box, the things that tend to lead into trouble. And I gave you some ideas initially about confidentiality. So I'm going to go around, I'm going to ask a couple audience members for, some questions that are kind of outside the box, and then we'll define that a little bit. I'm going to start right over here with you, sir, if you wouldn't mind, if you'd take that. All right. I'm going to ask you a question. In your mind, you try to decide if that's okay to talk about or not and try and answer. And let's set up the scenario that we're going into a country that's not terribly pro-American or pro-Christian. And we're going there and we're going to be teaching literacy, and we're using that as a way to reach out to people and help them and talk about our faith if we get a chance to do that. But that is we could honestly say we are going there to teach literacy. So you're in customs, and the guy wants to know, how long are you going to be here? Could you answer that, and would you? Go ahead and...
Yeah, I guess that's a question that would be inside the box, and I would just give him a brief answer. Well, we're here on a mission, and we're only going to be here for several days or several weeks.
Okay.
I think it's a good, Okay.
Specifically, I'd have a hard answer for him in customs. We will be here for 14 days, or we will, because they're legally going to want that on a lot of forms. Mm-hmm. Okay? Let me ask you one more. You said the word you're here on a mission. Well, you're here on a tourist visa, sir. So what do you mean mission?
Well, I share my testimony. I'm an evangelist of God, and I just come, just to witness to the people and tell them a little about Christ and my faith. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Now, are we headed towards trouble there? Could be, depends on the country. Okay, so I've already got to think that out if I'm going to use the word mission when I'm doing this thing. As opposed to literacy. If I'm going to, there are a lot of countries where I could have said exactly what he said. And there are some others, there are some questions I don't want to evade on. The guy says, how long are you going to be here? Why do you want to know that? Doesn't work well with most customs. Try that with TSA, Doesn't work very well. Okay, so outside the box, information that could hurt other people. Maybe they're wanting to know, well, let's give an example. I'm going to go right back to you, ma'am. Okay? Let's just play the game. Now, this time, you have been picked up. We picked you up on the street. You were handing out Bibles. And so we're talking to you at the police station.
Okay.
Okay. Ma'am, who sent you here?
I'm here on a mission with some of my fellow missionaries.
You're here with fellow missionaries.
Yes.
Okay. Who gave you permission to hand out Bibles?
We are just trying to give out some information to some of the people here.
Well, it's illegal. That's why you're under arrest. Now tell me, who are you here with? How many people?
8.
8. And where can I find these other 8 so I can arrest them? Let's stop with the right there. Okay? Okay? Absolutely, you're falling into the same thing we all do. Where is it headed? Have you ever been, if I said I was a lawyer, you'd already be thinking ahead, where's this going? You probably, and I've got some good lawyer jokes we can tell you later on, because some of my best friends are lawyers, okay? Where is that going? Did I eventually ask something that could hurt somebody else? And she paused, which was wise. Now we want to fill that pause in because says, you're stalling on me, you don't want to talk, and that means I'm going to come up with a new technique to get her to. So we got to watch the but great, she recognized that we were headed into trouble. Inflammatory subjects, let's leave those out of the box. Politics, in many cases religion. Not the fact that I'm there as a Christian because I love them and help them, but religion, that it's Christian versus somebody else, or that, this is political. I'd leave out politics. I'm being held by Al-Qaeda, that whole, how about Desert Storm? That's just not wise. And people say, well, why would you have to tell us that? That's common sense. You'd be surprised when people have been held a few weeks and they're getting a little irritable, how hostages will try to fight back in a little verbal battle, like, I'll just zing you one, So I'd leave that out of there. Divisive issues, finances, politics, religion, soccer in some countries, pick the wrong team. And a lot of folks fall into the trick of well, I'll agree with him. Yeah, I don't like our president here, or I don't like that policy either. The next problem with that is, okay, more questions, and since you're a sympathizer, would you go ahead and put that in writing? And maybe I did or didn't vote for whoever they're saying or whatever they're doing. There's a big difference between that here in America and signing something that later has made me feel like I didn't like my country or I didn't like somebody personally, or huge difference on that. So inflammatory subject, divisive, and then finally, areas that escalate your value. And I'm going to play one more here with that one. Let's go. Now, we've stopped your van and we've pulled, it's a bunch of bandits obviously, and you can tell because we all look like me and we got black things on our heads here and kind of doing the Zorro thing. And we've lined you up and we're getting your wallets and we're taking your purses, and it's just a highway robbery thing. Okay, so that's our scenario you're in. And I'm going to start to ask you some questions about value. What do you do for a living?
I just do manual labor. I help out people with
manual labor like what?
Bricklaying.
You're a bricklayer?
I'm just a...
Great. We got a bricklayer. Wrong van. Okay? Bricklaying pay much money in America?
That's the reason I'm here. It doesn't pay anything. I figured I'd come over here.
Okay. Well, who paid for your ticket here? Because we know that's a couple $1,000 bricklayer.
I had my family trying to see if I could do something worthwhile, and I obviously wasn't getting anywhere in the state, so...
So your family paid to get rid of you?
Basically,
yeah. Give me that bag. Did you see him, now that we're starting to talk, he's immediately starting to sanitize, and manual labor sounds like less money, not a lot of value, kind of even wondering if his wife wants him back, No. He's starting to talk down his value. And you'd be surprised, without thinking about it, people start to answer questions, well, you could do this with him. I'm a school teacher, really? So you went to college? Yep. 5 years, 7 years. It took me, that 6 credits a semester. It was tough. Really, who paid for college? Well, my parents on their retirement from the U.S. It's got to stop somewhere. So that was excellent, starting to stop on that kind of a thing. Now, we've heard, this is a little bit low pressure here. We're just asking questions. Maybe that's customs, maybe it's a nosy person on the plane. What are we going to do if there's a lot of pressure on? And the guy is saying, you don't answer the questions and somebody's going to get hurt. He's pointing a gun, or he's threatening to injure somebody, or those types of things. Well, now what we want to do is called a transition. He's pulling me out of the box. In my head, it would help if I can picture, where am I in this conversation? I'm still on health issues. Okay, I'm in the box. Oops, he just asked me about politics or something. I'm out of the box. How do I get back in? And it's not, and we want to do it in a shrewd way. So I refuse to answer that question. It's out of my box. Doesn't work very well with a guy who's intent on an answer. That doesn't usually work. Okay? So how am I going to do it? And we call it a transition. And good politicians do transitions. People who speak in front of the media a lot do good transitions. A transition is really a smooth, kind of a polite, I appear cooperative, I'm trying to answer your question, I speak, I don't refuse to speak, and the next thing you know, I'm talking about my agenda. Okay? Bad example, when the presidential candidate's asked a question he's totally unprepared on, and his answer is no comment. That's not a transition. That's a oops, you got me. Okay? That's a bad example. Bad example, and is your mother rich? No comment. Okay? We just said yes. All right? So a transition is, that's an interesting question. I've been trying to get out her will anyway. No, okay? We want to transition from, well, you're wanting to know how much my mother makes. Honestly, sir, I've now asked my mother. I don't live with my mother anymore. She's a widow, which would be for me, I could say that. She lives on a meagerly pension. We all have to pitch in and try to help her out. And if you're looking for value, my mother does not have money. I tell you value, she really wants me back. I mean, all she has really is her children. And I'm going to start talking with his question, and I'm going to end with back to home and family, back to something in my box. And I just move into that smoothly. It's so much easier than I refuse to answer that question. Or, oops, you got me, I don't want to talk about that. Or, those spy game things. You smile, you cooperate, and in your head, though, you're making the choice, I don't want to answer that, so I will speak, so I'm going to say this. That's those types of transitions that we're talking about. Now, if the guy doesn't buy that, and the transition didn't work, and he's really mad now, and he's the threat's gone up, I'm going to just go right into my STS now. We're out of the box is gone, and I'm just boiled right down to, sir, I don't know why you're upset. I told you we just came here to teach literacy or to help people, to tell them about Jesus. And we weren't hurting them, we were helping them. And I'm going to get repetitive, and it's going to become consistently, I don't want to say dumb like Gomer Pyle golly dumb, but I'm repetitive, and I don't say anything new, and I want him to kind of walk out of the room with a bit of a, this one's a dummy, get me a new one. Because what we find out historically with most tourists, short-term volunteers, folks like that, if he loses interest right away, we're done with this. Now it's more of a negotiation and we're out of here. The questioning stops. If I'm provocative with, why do you want to know that? I don't want to answer that. Those types of answers generally guarantee they're going to bring in the big guns later on, literally or figuratively. Okay? And I don't want to do that. I don't want to play the spy game, and I want the questioning to stop.
You're about to hear from Heather Mercer. Heather and her colleague Dana were held by the former Taliban government in Afghanistan. She talks about the difficulty she and Dana faced when their captors pressured them for more information. She also talks about the difference between her and Dana's reactions to the interrogation. The fact that their two stories didn't completely match up created further pressure for them both.
So that was part of the struggle. We were being the broken record and just giving them the information that we had said at the beginning over and over and over again. But they could tell it wasn't all the information, and they could tell that there were holes in what we were saying, that there were things we were leaving out. And I was sort of working from the philosophy of only tell them the exact answer to their question, don't offer any more information. And Dana is very free and is very honest and integrous, and so she's more willing to share more. And so even that we had to wrestle through.
So I'll be brief, I'm honest, but I'm telling the part of the story that helps us. I'm not telling them everything I know. And people struggle with that. Well, isn't that lying? Yes, my mother told me the whole truth is the truth. Anything else is a lie. And she meant when I was talking to another honest person who met my own, like her. But when I'm talking to somebody who doesn't, did Jesus answer all the questions at his trial? When they started to set him up to say things, are you the king of the Jews? He spoke. He didn't say I refuse. He never says no comment in the scripture, not in my King James or my NIV or anywhere else. But he didn't answer their questions. He spoke with answers of things he wanted to give. That's where we want to be with this whole transition concept. It's a shrewd way to avoid trouble.
Here are two Fort Sherman instructors demonstrating the concept of the box. First, they're going to role play a scenario of how an interrogation often goes. Stop and talk about some of the things you see that could have been handled better. Also, talk about how your team would have handled the situation. After discussing with your group, resume the DVD and see the same situation handled in a different way.
Okay, I want you to tell me your name.
My name's Jim.
Jim what?
Jim Hodges.
Jim Hodges. And Jim, where are you from?
From
Answer me. Where are you from?
From America.
America. Where in America? Come on. Tell me the answer.
Idaho.
Okay, you're from Idaho. Do you have parents?
Yes.
What do they do?
My parents live in Idaho. And
Where in Idaho do they live?
up in the Panhandle, up in a small logging mining area.
Okay, and you got brothers and sisters?
Yes.
And tell me about them.
I have a brother.
Don't look down when you're talking to me.
I have a brother who's a doctor, and
You have a brother who's a doctor?
yes.
He has money.
Well, I
He
don't
has
know.
money. He can pay money.
Yeah.
What's this brother's name?
Brian.
Brian what?
Brian Hodges.
Oh, Brian Hodges. And where does he work?
He works at the University of Washington in Seattle.
So we can contact him there. Can you give me a phone number?
I don't know. He's very busy. He's head of the anesthesia department.
He's
there.
the head of the anesthesia department. So if I call the University of Washington, ask for the anesthesia department, and ask for Brian Hodges, I'm going to get your brother.
He may be available. I don't know. Sometimes he's in surgery. I don't know what he's doing.
And he can pay money.
He makes a good living. I don't know what he would do.
Now, are you married?
Yes.
Do you have a wife?
Yes.
You have children?
Yes.
Tell me their names.
Jeremy and Mandy.
Jeremy and Mandy. And how old are they?
Mandy's 28 and Jeremy's 21.
Now, where do they live?
They live in Idaho.
They live in Idaho. Can you tell me how to get in touch with them? I might want to talk to them.
Well, Mandy's busy. She's a clinical psychologist, and she's
Oh, so your
busy.
daughter's a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
So she